Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Mark Whittle. Mark, how are you?
I am great. Really good. Thank you, Shahid. I appreciate you having me on. And it's a Monday morning. So I love Mondays. I don't know about you, but I love Mondays. So new start and a nice way to start the week.
Yeah, it is Monday, any day really, right?
Yeah, I think obviously Mondays have this sometimes a negative connotation, right? This Monday feeling on a Sunday evening. So
I know the Sundays.
Yeah.
I remember Sundays when I was working at the corporate office many years ago. I used to dread Sundays. Like I remember waking up on Sundays and I was like, crap. I'll talk to my brother, same thing. I'll talk to my friends, same thing. So everyone around me was having that same type of mentality. And I was involved in it at the same time. It was just a level of awareness, right? And I was doing it to myself, right? There was a few, one or two guys here and there that you'll come across. They're saying Mondays, yes, Sundays, yes. But pretty much everyone is just like Sundays or Monday mornings are pretty difficult for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I'm a big believer that we can completely change the feeling if you're doing the thing that you're passionate about. And it takes a lot of time, a big commitment. And, you know, similar to yourself, I was in the corporate world for a long, long time. And we'll probably get into that story, but
yeah,
it's taken maybe 5 years, but now I love Mondays, and how many of us are prepared to put 5 years in to love it. And maybe that's because we don't believe that you can actually love it on the other side of it. But man, I'm a big believer in that, mate. And I've had the same experience.
Awesome.
So
I love it. I love it, Mark. Yeah, it does take a few years to achieve this level. But we always like to kind of start with allowing the guests to kind of introduce themselves. I know we just started talking, but it's a very organic show here. So I'll allow you to kind of, in your own words, introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, great. Shahid, where are you based, by the way?
Toronto.
Ah, okay. Amazing. I haven't been to stay. I've flown into Toronto. I spent some time in Banff in Canada when I was younger.
Oh, nice.
And I have friends from Toronto, so I hope to be there one day. But yeah. So top line about what I do right now is I'm a coach. I'm fill in the blank, life coach, business coach, performance coach. But I ultimately work with business owners or founders or CEOs. And that's typically between the years of probably 2 to 7, that sort of high growth, high scale period of the business where everything's chucked at you, which tests you and pushes you to your limits. So it's a privilege to be able to help people navigate that journey. I say if somebody was writing their book, I get to support them during the most challenging but most exciting chapter of that book, and I get the benefit myself selfishly of learning a lot about myself by working with these people. So that's I say that's 80% of my clients, and then 20% professional athletes, football or soccer players over here, so get to help them. And again, that's supporting them through a transitional period, so usually leaving the game, so identity shift of being an athlete and then changing to becoming a fill in the blank, you know, civilian or pundit or media person or whatever it is. And then I spend probably about 30% of my time on the podcast, which is called Take Flight. And that's been going 5 years. That's the thing that set me off on this journey when I was working in the corporate world and just found myself incredibly unfulfilled, having achieved all the things I thought was important. Started this podcast and spoke with a load of friends to begin with, actually, but they were friends in high places. You know how it is. I was fortunate to know some people who've done great things. So it started there and just went on a crazy journey from there. So, and public speaking as well, which probably one of my most favorite things that I do, but I do it probably less than the other two.
Well, that's awesome. And podcasting is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just wonderful.
And it just gives you a level of access to people you would never have an opportunity to speak with, and gives you free resource to learn from the greatest minds in the world, and leads oftentimes, and not always, but oftentimes, to some of the best relationships that are in my life. And yeah, it's been incredible.
Yeah, like same here for me. You know, I was reading old books and getting involved in entrepreneurship. How can I grow? And one of the things that kept getting to me was that same information from these books was, you know, be around the people that you want to be like, right? And it's like, how do you do that? Like, what do you mean? You know, so I was going to network events, you know, I was doing all those things. And at the events, it didn't feel like that's where I want to be. And it just came to us at podcasting, you know, and then everybody was telling me, go niche it down, micro niche. And, you know, some of the greatest names, right? They're micro niche, but I didn't feel like micro niche was it, you know, so I just jumped it, and it just took off, and it's been incredible. Like you said, the people, the relationships that you build, you might not build a relationship with everyone, but you know, that 1 out of 10, they're pretty solid.
Yeah. It's a strange thing to do, right? Because you go pretty deep with someone for an hour or more. That you may never have met before, and then sometimes you never speak to them again. So it's a kind of strange setup. But then sometimes, like you said, you'll then lead to this incredible relationship off the back of it. So I guess you've got to be grateful for both of those outcomes. But it is a strange thing to go like super deep with somebody and then sometimes never speak to them again.
I know it is. That's enjoyable. And you mentioned, you know, when you go into a business, you're at that 2+ mark. You might find a lot of the strategies or a lot of the procedures that they're following may not allow them to see that growth. So when you go in there, is that what you initially focus on? Is what the picture looks like at that day, and then help moving forward?
Yeah, good question. This it varies depending on the client. Usually it varies based off of how much work they've done on themselves, to be honest. So if they've done a lot of personal development work, they've got a pretty high level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, then I will go deeper with that. And that's what I'll start on them. So grasping and understanding who they are, their limitations, self-limiting beliefs, glass ceilings, the record play that plays in their head every day, the things that they're telling themselves, internal dialogue, and what all of that relates back to, like traumatic events or otherwise, or just big experiences that have led them to think in a certain way. Like a really basic example I use is, you know, let's take a female entrepreneur whose parents got divorced when she was 15, which she's never looked back at because it's painful, but she's having trust issues with her second in command in the business. And then we identify that the divorce led to a certain narrative which says I can't get too close to people because they could hurt me, or something like that, right? It's a really generic example, but something along those lines. With that understanding comes a lot of freedom and liberation around how you operate today, because the body doesn't remember when it happened. It just knows the feeling's still there because you haven't overcome that. So there's loads of nuances and intricacies in life around that, which, you know, we'll never fully know, but we can do a good job of getting close to it. So that's how I start with people who've done a bit of work. And if people haven't done that before, then we'll be a bit slower. We'll probably have a period of what I call cleaning house, which is just figuring out all the shit that's going on now, what you've created for yourself in life and business. So trying to get that to a sort of basically steadying the ship. So we'll steady the ship and give you then space to do some of that internal work. And then after the internal work, we're like, right, let's fucking reach for the stars then. Let's create whatever lifestyle that you want for yourself from a healthy place. And then put the practices, habits and routines in place in order to do that.
Do you ever, when you meet with a prospect, do you ever find that they obviously need the help on the mindset side or the internal world side, but they don't believe so?
Yeah. I think most people who have, if you're talking about a prospect and they've shown some interest, then usually they're more open to it. If I'm approaching somebody, then yes, all the time, which is why it doesn't tend to work, to be honest. And I pretty much work exclusively on either referral or like a warm referral as in someone's looking for a coach, or a referral where someone said, you would benefit from a coach, speak to this guy that I know, so they kind of loosely know what it is. But yeah, absolutely. Because we, a lot of us anyway, choose to switch off that, and we're not open to change the egos defending us or looking after us and protecting us. So and then with those, like, pretty much rule number one with coaching is you can only work with people who want it, not need it.
Yeah. And mindset and internal world is a sensitive topic for many. They don't want to go there.
Yeah, you got to trust massively to open the closet to your deepest secrets. And but you know what? When someone does it, it's you can see the relief on a lot of people's face, especially those who are refusing to do it or think they don't need the help. Like when they finally go, whoa, and lift all this weight off their shoulders and share the things that they've been unknowingly or unconsciously pushing down, is such a relief. So it's actually, again, privileged to be involved in those chats.
Yeah, it's so incredible. I find it like a foundation, right, to everything, not just business, but your life, your relationships, and to become aware that there is work that needs to be done is the first step. And they approach you and you talk to them and you find that there's trust, trust aspect to it. People will give it a try. They will open up and they will start kind of seeing and digging in what's going on. And it's not an easy task, but you're obviously, Mark, very passionate about it, right? And that passion, it seeps through that person's world. They vibrationally, you say so much to someone that it makes a decision for them, right? So definitely whoever you're working with, they're connected with you regardless from day one.
Yeah, that's true, man. Yeah, like if you say something that resonates energetically with someone, for sure, then you are connected from day one. But you said the term a few times, which I love, which let's not skim over it, but the internal world. That's it. It's everything, right? That creates the lens that we see the world with. It creates our perception. It creates all of our experiences. So until we understand that, then, or before we understand that, why would we look there? Because we live in the external. So life is what we're seeing. Life is the events that are taking place. Life is, we're the, Whereas when you realize the internal world dictates how we experience that, then we can start to go, oh, fucking hell. And that's a beautiful journey. But like you said, it's hard.
It's hard. It's super simple, but nowhere easy, So what do you work on? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it's like Pandora's box, right? You open it up and then that's it. You can't ever close that thing. You think you've worked it all out, and then around the corner, there's another thing and another thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they what do they say? They say that once the chicken comes out of the egg, you can never go back in. Once they get a taste of that, once they start feeling, they wake up in the morning, they're feeling like, vibration of just doing and action and just connecting and being around people when they didn't really want to be around people, for example. That was me. And then you just feel like the entire universe is on your side eventually when you get to that layer. But what do you start with? Do you start with them on the subconscious mind? Like, do you work on the internal, or first you find out the issues or traumas in the past, heal them, and then go to subconscious? How does it work with you, with your coaching style?
Well, you've got to meet someone where they are, right? With every new client or anyone, you have to meet them with where they are on their journey. So, usually a big question like, what's the most important thing for us to address today? Or what's the thing that's holding you back the most today? What's the thing that's challenging you the most today? Because that helps you meet them where they are, because they're going to then tell you their perception of where they are. If that lands,
perception,
their view of where they are, right? So, okay, so the biggest thing that's challenging me in my life right now is my relationship with my wife or whatever, maybe that's their example. Or my biggest thing that's challenging me right now is my sales director. Or my biggest thing that's challenging me right now is my weight or whatever, right? And then you go, okay, cool. That's the level that we're at right now. Let's address that. And that's part of that cleaning house process, right? And then I can help with all those things. Let's just start digging into that and understand why. And then inevitably you end up going down something that which leads to some sort of belief philosophy, or, some sort of thought that's led them to be in there. Or like over a long period of time, how it's led them to be there. So starting where they're at, and then the next step would be to start to do gently, but some form of education. Again, like those terms, internal world versus external world. Like if someone's never heard that before, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Some people might not even, conscious mind to unconscious mind. It's like, what?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like sometimes I make posts and I talk about the inside out paradigm compared to the outside in paradigm. And then when I'm doing it, sometimes I think to myself, I go, I think I should be explaining this a lot further, because I think it's too broad. Like if you look at some of my social media posts, you'll see it's like someone that knows what that is, they'll pick up on it, right? But if somebody knows what the hell is this guy talking about, but you just pointed that out, it's just triggered that memory.
But that's great though, because like say your target market or your target client, if you want them to understand that, then keep talking in that language.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to talk to the ones who don't understand that, But also I think part of the role of a coach is to try to make that the go-between almost between some of that work to like, Yeah.
And, you mentioned relationships, and I find that even if an entrepreneur comes to a coach, they'll come for example, business growth or business help. The relationship, something about some kind of relationship when it involves someone else, another person, that comes in somewhere, right? Like you have to deal with that relationship component somewhere in the coaching life that you will be with that client. So what would you say your top 3 suggestions would be to someone that, that has a relationship issue of some sort? They're not getting along. There's an issue. There's friction, right? There's on their mind. They're stressed out about it. It's always there. They're trying to work, but that relationship keeps knocking in the back of their head. What would you say to someone? Top 3 suggestion ideas that they could work on if they had that problem?
Well, there's only one.
Okay.
There's only one thing to do, right? Or one thing to understand is that everybody around us is just a reflection of what's going on for us internally.
Good answer.
So any friction or any issue or challenges we have with somebody else is only reflecting back the issues we have for ourselves. So figure your shit out. Take it as the indicator. Take it as the free fucking study and education of thank you for showing me what I have or what I don't like about myself or what I struggle with.
Yeah.
And that's where to start.
It's hard for some to hear that, right? So
it is hard to hear. It's like, it's all your fault.
So when a mentor of mine in the past, when he said to me, he said, Shahid, you got to get out of your own way, right? He said, my ego was strong back then. Like my ego was holding me back like crazy, Mark. I'll tell you. And it's some of my culture and upbringing, whatever. It was just those paradigms, programming that was holding me back to even talk to someone, thinking that I was better, for example. You know what I mean? Like it was always there. And when they said that to me, I was like, whoa. Like I was internally crushed that he said that to me. It's like, how could he say that? Get out of my, and afterwards I didn't say anything, but afterwards I kept thinking, get out of my own way, get out of my own way. What the hell is he talking about? Get out of my own way. It took me a few months into the program, into like actually working on internal world, that it clicked. I said, oh, I am in my own way. And that's really is the same, a similar thing about someone telling them, hey, what is it about you? Something about you internally that you don't like, that you see in him.
It's such a good phrase. I remember, I'm sure it was like a really random book. It was by Tyrese Gibson. Do you remember Tyrese Gibson, the actor, R&B singer?
Yes.
Yeah. And just because my dad was a coach, by the way, a bit of backstory. So I was nice. Exposed to a lot of coaching and a lot of the mindset stuff early on, but
he coached
more
you?
old school. He did. Yeah. Yeah. But like more of the old school kind of like, yeah, you know, like all still very relevant, but like the Jim Rohn and you know, Bob Proctor, but very much on the business side. So set your goals, do all this. It wasn't about understanding who you are to truly set goals that align with you. It was just more about the structures and stuff, which still work today. But yeah, I ended up reading a book by Tyrese Gibson, and I think the title was called How to Get Out of Your Own Way. And I was maybe like 17. I didn't understand that for maybe like 4 or 5 years after that. And similar to yourself, I was, you know, big ego. I was an athlete, so you're trained to have a big ego. It's the worst thing to hear at the time, but then, and again, it's repetition, but it's the worst thing to hear at the time. But afterwards, the more you can own it, the ownership becomes the most freeing thing. Ownership and accountability. It's like one of the number one things I say to all of my clients. When you can own it all of it, then you can do something about it, or choose not to. But yeah, really, really difficult.
Yeah, and choosing not to, unfortunately, is very common.
Yeah,
you know.
And then there's almost a layer above that though as well, when you're like consciously choosing not to, rather than choosing not to out of fear. You know, choosing not to engage in a certain conversation because that might be an old pattern that would cause you to do that, something like that. You know what I mean?
Avoidance.
Yeah.
Right?
But then consciously, like from a presence going, I don't need to. You know what I mean? Like if my pattern, which it was, is to be overly aggressive, alpha, that when I was in the corporate world, let's say somebody would, or I would translate it as somebody said something and they're competing with me, or they're undermining me, or threatening me, or one of the many random comments which I may have then translated as meaning that, right? Maybe they didn't, but I translate that. So then my reaction is to go in whatever language I want, but basically to go back in their face, full assertive, full, you know, alpha.
Yeah.
But then when you learn that about yourself, then you can consciously choose inaction in that moment, because you don't need that anymore. You don't need to prove yourself.
You don't. And you know, it's all over in our schooling and sports and our parents and competitiveness. Better than that person. Better than that person. At the end of the day, we're streaming from the same ocean. You know, so it's once we remove that layer, it's just incredible how clear things become. You know, and how clean and good relationships like magic automatically start improving when you start working on yourself. Like people always say, when I approach someone, when I speak to someone, they will say, oh, you know what? My husband, my wife could really use your help, right? Or my friend, you know, my friend Jack or whoever, they could really use your help. And I say, you know, this might sting a little, but you can only start with yourself so you get to a place where you can actually help others, right? So we always tend to kind of point the finger outwards, thinking the issues out there, like you mentioned earlier, but there's so much magic within.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. It's like this stupid sayings, right?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's to say that, you know, the stupid sayings when you're a kid, when people say like, you point one finger at somebody else, there's 3 pointing back at yourself. And when you're a kid, you're just like, but then now it's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just proved my point. It is everyone's fault.
You proved my point. I'm going to point. Yeah. So, you know, Mark, like my best interviews when I have like mindset people on or entrepreneur that secretly, or not secretly, but just within had worked on mindset, internal world, and it comes out in an interview, it just changes everything. Like I'm always excited, always super grateful when I have individuals like yourself, Mark, and because you're providing incredible value. It's not about, you know, I'm showing nothing wrong with this, right? Obviously we need it, but I'm showing you how to do a Facebook ad or how to make an image, those kind of things, business, or how to market, for example, right? Those are great, but what this does is generational. Like this is something that, like, individuals like yourself, what you do in society has so much depth and value to it that you can't even explain in words.
Yeah, thanks, Shahid. I appreciate that, mate. I mean, like you said, right, we all need to know how to do a Facebook ad as well. We all need to know how to run a marketing campaign.
Of course.
We need to know how to onboard a client or even find one in the first place. But who do you want to be when you're doing those things?
Yeah.
And that's what I try and help people do. How do you want to feel? Yeah. How do you want to experience that? Do you want to do that pissed off that you're having to do it? Or do you want to do that with the freedom and and being at peace with knowing why you're doing it and for the greater good?
Yeah. Not connected to the result, not just based on the result and fluctuating up and down. I remember, and you probably remember this too, that the day would start, I would pick up my phone and I'll look at the emails and stuff, and I would just start feeling frustrated right in the beginning. I didn't know any better. Like this was natural to me, right? Like everybody around me was saying, these are, natural feelings, that's what you get frustrated, you get angry, right? But it would dictate the rest of my day. My mind will be chaotic, compulsive, just completely just out of control thinking. I wouldn't even know I'll be ready. I didn't even enjoy any of that, right? And then getting to work, and it kept piling on. By the nighttime, shit, I didn't do this, going to bed frustrated. And there's surprisingly majority, like so many people are going through this, right? So hopefully this message gets to their ears or eyes, or if they're watching it or listening, that it doesn't have to be that way. You have the control. People like Mark can help you, like this is something that internally you've been gifted everything. You just need to know how to use the tools that you were gifted. Our parents love them so much. They just didn't know. They were given from their parents, and it kept coming on up to us. So now it's our responsibility to work with people like Mark, right, Mark?
That's it, man. No, you said it perfectly. And I think the word that stands out is responsibility. It is a responsibility for all of us. Like I've got a 2-year-old daughter, like, so that put more responsibility on, but like, we have to break these generational patterns, the conditioning that we've had imparted on us. And I say a lot, learn to work with your biology, not against it. And you've used an example there, how many of us pick up our phone straight away? And we know from studies now that if you pick your phone up first thing in the day, then you're far more likely to keep checking your phone constantly through the day. So if you can force yourself to stop for that first hour or even half an hour, then you're going to be working with your biology, having not programmed yourself that morning to keep on your phone. There's loads of little things like that, like practices, tools, and things that you can implement to work with yourself to get the most out of yourself. But it's just initially educating and bringing awareness to that. It's awesome, man. When you start to see the heights that you can go to and how you can feel and how that makes you perform better, then it's endless, really.
Endless. I did a post and I felt like I read somewhere in the mindset journey, and I felt like, okay, yes, I'm good. And then there was another layer, right? And then I thought, okay, good. And it happened a few times. And then I realized that it's infinite. I don't think it ever ends. The journey.
No, it doesn't end. It doesn't end.
Right.
But that's what's great about it as well. Yeah. But and worse and worse. There's polarity in everything.
Yes.
It gets great, and then you go, and then you go, I thought I figured it out, and then you figure it out again, and then you get a little, it's constant. It's great. You learn to love both sides.
Yeah. But you keep adding the concrete and the bricks, and you keep adding, you still have that foundation somewhere that is higher than your previous. Even if you fall off, you're still stable, right? So you keep going up, and then if you fall down, you're still falling on a foundation that is stronger, I feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
And Mark, what kind of recommendations you could give to the audience? I know we kind of talked about it. The morning ritual. Okay. There a lot of people talk about morning rituals, whatever. What would you recommend to someone watching or listening? What to do to start shifting the internal world in the mornings, just to start off for now, before they contact you, for example, right? Like something they could start doing immediately after watching this episode.
I think it depends who you are, right? Depends who you are and how you operate. So that, again, there's a responsibility on you to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I'm very high energy. So it's easy for me to like fly into my emails and fly into work and social media first thing. So I find meditation is really good because it kind of brings me down and relaxes me. I find more presence. I can get a bit more centered before the chaos starts. So I find meditation. I've also found recently, I used to journal intermittently, but I found recently that journaling in the morning has been really helpful, just to get some of the thoughts out on paper. Journaling's great anyway. Like whenever I used to just do it when bad things happened, almost sort myself around a little bit, because you have that space between the thought and actually writing the words out. You can almost be a little bit more objective and see how ridiculous you're being. So that's nice. So meditation, journaling. I do a cold shower every morning. I've done that for years, before the Wim. Yeah, nice. Before the Wim Hof sensation. I mean, he's been doing it for longer than that, but that's just been a practice that I rely on. And again, working with your biology, not against it, that shoots norepinephrine through your system, helps with wakefulness, helps with focus. And I know myself to be an evening person. So mornings are a little bit more difficult. So cold shower is really good for someone like me. And then you can throw any amount of other things in there, right? That's pretty much what I get at the moment because I've got a 2-year-old. So then I have to start, being on dad duty. But if you've got more time, definitely read a book or listen to a podcast, and that sort of content's going to lift your energy and motivate you to get on with things in the day. It's worth saying as well that every Sunday evening I write out my entire week, so I know what I'm doing ahead of time. So there's no questions or doubt around what's coming up the following day. Like I know what I'm doing this whole week in my head already.
Awesome.
Then I write down my goals for that week, and I tend not to have more than 5. So I have 5 things that I want to achieve. Like this week, for example, is a business development week because most of my activities are around biz dev. I'm also coaching a lot. But I'm doing more business development than other weeks. So in my mind, I'm like, this is a business development week. And then other goals around health and other things. And then off the back of the goals, I will set intentions. So those intentions set me up for the activities that I'm taking on, right? So those intentions are this week, for example, to be confident and capable, because it's a business development week. I definitely want to be perceived as being confident and capable. Always presence is in there because I'm always coaching, and that's the number one intention I set before I go into a session. Because of some of the personal things that I've got going on this week, like seeing my family and stuff, patience is one of my intentions. So, I do these things because, again, working with your biology, that is setting the intention. It's giving my mind something to focus on for the 7-day period. And then I do that again at the Sunday. So that just complements the morning routine as well.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing, and hopefully it provides value to someone listening. I find that morning, I find myself addicted to a morning ritual now. Like I've been doing it for years, but before the transformation per se, I used to laugh at anybody say I journal. You know what I mean? What do you mean a journal, right? So and it's all those kind of things. It started becoming more clear is that once you work on yourself in the morning, your day does become more productive, right? And then over time, you get so hooked to that ritual that it's just like your fire, It just lights you up for the day. And I love hearing from different guests about their ritual and appreciate that you shared We always also like to ask our guest what their inner superpower is that got them to this point in their life.
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
It's hard. I'm getting like two things that are coming up mostly.
Take your time. Get it from your heart, you know?
Yeah. The first one I'd say is a sense of humor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's why we're getting along.
Yeah. I bet. I sense that. So,
same here.
The ability to, this is an English term, but to take yourself or to take the piss out of somebody else. That basically means make fun of.
Laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Is so underrated, man. And like, that's why I love the laughing Buddha. That's exactly what he's doing. He's laughing at how ridiculous all of this is.
Yeah.
And you in that laughter there, like what a lovely energy that is.
Yeah. Thank you.
And to be able to do that in good times and bad times. So sense of humor to take the piss out of or to make fun of others or yourself is great. And I also notice that's a really good qualifier for me around my friends. Like if I make a little joke and someone laughs, then I know that we're on a level.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. And then to completely contrast that, because there was, longer story of mine, but I suffered with my mental health, which is what triggered this whole journey. So I lost my sense of humor for, So I lost my sense of humor for a while, or at least I felt like I didn't laugh as much as I used to. Right. So during that period, what got me through was just sheer resilience, which is an overused term, but it really is like the refusal to give up under any circumstances. And also the refusal to accept your current circumstances are forever. And that just turned into me working a lot and refusing to accept my circumstances and making sure I did everything I possibly could to change them. And that was what a lot of that 5-year period was, and actually the years before.
Well, I'm glad that you're laughing now, and continue that laughter, smile, and that joy is contagious, and you're probably bringing that into your clients' lives as well. It doesn't have to be that serious, right? Nothing has to be that serious. Everything can be laid back, relaxed. This journey, we have to go through this journey regardless, right? So we make it a pleasant one. It's pleasant for everyone then, not just you.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, again, it's all these terms which you don't think twice of when you hear them, but life is a gift and all this stuff. You're like, yeah, whatever. But when you really grasp that, it's like, it's so amazing to be here, man. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. And the little things are everything. Like my little girl is holding my hand at the weekend, or we're laughing at her giggle, things like that. Like, and then to the grander things of going to big sports events, of watching performances and, being around that sort of energy, and then being successful in business. Like all of these things are a privilege. So yeah,
it's amazing. It's a blessing every moment, every moment, every step, every breath. Sounds like a song, but it's definitely coming from my heart, because it's tough. It's tough if you don't have the strong inner world. Life can be really, really tough, right? Like you were there, I was there, and you see that around, and you don't want that for anyone, especially when you get there to the level of awareness. You just want to help everyone, and I see that you're doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Shahid. Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Mark, it's been a pleasure talking to you, spreading your message and your cool, relaxed energy, caring energy with the audience. Love you guys. Keep on supporting, share the episode, comment, connect with Mark. Anybody that comes on this show, they're open, right? They're spreading their wings, they're coming out, they're sharing their heart with everyone. There's no means, no reason why, if you have that feeling that, you know what, maybe I should contact Mark. Oh, what if he's like really expensive and all that? Just forget about all that stuff. You know, you don't worry about that at this point. You just want to go and see what that person has to say. Maybe there's something that sparks that could completely change the direction and the path of your life, which is what I want for all of you. And Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm grateful for your time, for your energy to be present here with me during this episode. And again, I love building relationships. You know, keep in touch. Anywhere I can help, let me know. If you're releasing a book or anything like that, and you want me to kind of go on social media with you or something, more than welcome. Yeah, thank you. If there's any last words you want to share as well.
I'll just thank you. Keep doing your thing, mate. It's amazing. I've really enjoyed connecting. And yeah, I think I know we've spoken a lot about the responsibility of doing the work ourselves, right? But like you mentioned there a moment ago, it's so important also to get the right people around you, because it is hard. So, you know, making connections like this and people listening who, you know, want to reach out, don't be scared to either of us or anyone for that matter. So yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem, Mark. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on the show. And I'm going to send you an email, and I'll let you know about once the assets are released, once the episode is released, we'll send you the whole package with everything, all the content, you know, and ask if you could share it on your network. And that's it. Thank you again, and keep in touch.
Great. All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye.